It's okay.
Walter, how you doing? Thank you for coming to Bordeaux.
Yes, it's great to be here.
Listen, it's been a while we've been preparing this meeting in a duo improvisation form. It was about 11 months we were together for the trio in Norway with Justine Stalheim. And I thought it'd be good for us to exchange what we were discussing earlier in the day. What it takes for our perception as musicians and real-time composers or improvising, what it takes to adapt to the trio situation and go into the duo situation. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think it's really interesting, the difference between duo and trio. Now, as I was telling you earlier, I was speaking with my daughter Kaylee. She was having a problem with two friends, the three of them playing together at the same time, because two would focus and the other one would be left out, etc., etc. So
we have a saying, two is company and three is a crowd.
Right, exactly. And honestly, as simple as that is, when you're in like working with Justin and you up in Norway, of course, we're always conscious when we're playing, whether it's a duo or a trio or a quartet, a quintet, whatever. But I felt like I had to be conscious in a different way when I was playing in the trio. It was really to be conscious in a different way, so that I would leave space. Leave space to use the space in a different way. Not leave space, but to use it in a different way. And with the duo, it's you don't have to think about a third person. One can banter, go back and forth in all kinds of, up-tempo, slowing down, this and that, the other, and there's not this other person that you have to consider. So in some ways, for me, a trio is more complex.
It is more complex because each of us as soloists is listening to has two choices. I can go with the accordion of Justine, I can go with the piano of Walter. Walter, you can go with E.T.'s Basset horn, and you can go with the Justine's. And
then sometimes the two of you are going, and I hear that, like in the trio recordings, and I hear that, and my decision is either to do something in more of a background, some kind of a supportive role, or I can go in kind of as if totally ignoring you and playing on top of it, or not play at all. Or some kind of combination of all of that.
Which is true, because in a trio, if one of us steps up, that creates a duo. Yeah. And there you go. And then that duo relationship can be very strong. Yeah.
Exactly.
So how did you prepare this meeting, in the duo meeting? In your practice or in your conceptual state of mind? Was there anything that you were looking for?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I had done some recent duo recordings with Tim O'Dwyer in Singapore.
Right.
So I was prepared for the duo. But in that sense, so that was maybe a month ago, and so I had done these duo recordings, but this is a whole different situation. And I'm thinking, how do I prepare for this? So besides practicing, I made sure to look at other duos, like Marilyn Crispell and Tashawn Sori and Matthew Shipp and Ivo Perlman, and I was just listening to their music, wonderful music, listening to their music, and putting myself in the duo head.
Right.
And realizing there's a different energy in some kind of ways. I don't know if this is exactly right or not, but in some sort of way, I feel like I can stay in a more high energy mode, exactly, in a duo, in a different way than I could with the trio. So
you don't have to downshift on your
car.
I
didn't have to downshift. It's like, okay, and it's your responsibility now to keep up with me. Not just one, or my responsibility to keep up with you, if you're in a more high energy mode. And that's a different thing. If a third person is kind of there, you have to consider that third person. So I prepared by really thinking that I would, if I was doing something on the piano, that I would naturally feel like I could go a little further with it than I might do in a trio.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Sure. I mean, I didn't really listen to many duos. I prepared it in my head with my Erolgraphs system. I wanted to kind of test our resilience. I prepared a little bit differently. I did not listen to other duos, but I was interested in presenting you with some Erolgraphs and trying to see if we keep the same freshness as improvisers while looking at a graphic chart. And I chose to throw you kind of a flying fish with this painting that I was doing because I'm renovating my house. And so I said, this would be really cool because your father was a painter.
Yes.
And I said, okay, here, this is a cut up, just to replace a hole in my in my bathroom. And so I drew this little thing because it was a little bit bigger than the first drawing that I made. And I'm waiting for my chef de chantier, the worker, to cut it up for me. And then I said, well, I'm going to fill this out, the second part, and then I fill this out with the third part. And I gave it to you, and then I can't remember which way. Do you remember which way you put it up?
I think we played it horizontally.
Horizontal like that, yeah.
I believe so.
So it's really cool because it's like, one surface and 3 spaces, and we're a duo. So I let you look at that, and I kind of just related to you because I know what I was doing. And so this painting, because you are a sound painter, the inventor of sound painting, I said, well, let's put sound onto this painting, right? Bring it to life.
Right, and then in just a small little tangent, is that it was my brother Charles, who, my father was an abstract expressionist painter, and Charles was, thinking of, as he named it, sound painting, because of a similar world that painting's in. So this was not a far stretch.
No, because as I'm doing this, I'm analyzing my own painting in terms of minimalism, some pointillism, some long tones, and this is a lot of piling with a sprinkle, like a screen, kind of like looking out at the world. And then finally, I had sent you some Erolgraphs here, which is kind of a linear type of progression with circles, open form, open time. The squares are kind of 4 repetitive sequence of 4, and this triangle is a repetitive sequence of 3 events, or one event 3 times, what you call that. So this is very cool as we read through this, and I was fascinated because once we were finished with the linear progression, we would pick and choose, and it was really fun because I didn't know what you were going to play, but once you played, I could see where you were on the page, and I could choose to go there or find a complementary type of gesture elsewhere. So this kind of repertoire of gestures, which is also going back to sound painting, it's a language made from gestures.
Right, and it's interesting, really interesting is in our improvisations, in our duo compositions.
Yeah.
Our first 3 were open form, without any reference to the painting or the aerographs.
Yeah.
And so in one way we played, we explored and composed a certain way. Once exposed to the painting and the aerographs, after that, we played another way.
It's like,
So it's interesting how that informs.
yeah, like our first piece was an overture where we just try everything. We're just practicing. You didn't need, normally you take an hour to practice before recording anything.
To get used to the piano. Right?
Yeah, and you had about 30 seconds. I said, well, I'll join you, let's record that, and let's record the warm-up. And,
Right.
and there's nothing lost. But what was really cool is that it was so dense, it was like an overture with all the different themes that we're about to develop later on.
Right.
And the aerograph of this painting allows us to kind of focus into one aspect, or 2 or 3 or 4 aspects, but not 500, which between the 2 of us, it's possible because we're on this high complexity level when we think and when we play. Another thing we could share with the people watching this is that you're talking about distance, like you said, sometimes you feel like you're playing here when you'd prefer to be out here. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, what I was saying to Etienne is that when I feel like I'm at my most concentrated moment when improvising or composing in real time, I feel like I'm not my imagination, my brain, my consciousness is somewhere out here. I don't feel like I'm back here in the moment thinking about, okay, I'm playing the piano, there's Etienne over there, there's my cup of coffee, etc. I don't think I'm in the room. It's like being in some sort of dream state where you're out here and you're making it happen.
Yeah.
So today, I think we always want to be out here, but we can't be because of what happens in life might pull us back towards the moment, And so I felt like today, through most of the compositions, not all of them, but most of them, I felt like I was closer to being able to to do what's called mind chatter,
Mm-hmm.
to talk with yourself about, I'm in the moment, you know,
Mhm.
oh, should I have played that? I mean, not being so literal,
Mm-hmm.
but in that kind of way, oh, should I play that? To be like, you know, oh, I'm thinking too much about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And that's being back here. And to not think about what one is doing, only to react is out here. So I was a little bit between those two today, which caused me to push hard to be out here,
Mm.
which of course it's really hard to do that. You can't push yourself out there, it just has to happen naturally. But I was pushing hard to be out there, and then that yielded some, now that we look back at some of the videos, I realized just being here and pushing to be here offered something else.
Yeah, I kind of like quote unquote, use the information you're giving me, you know, as a trigger. You know, I might have some idea in the moment, but I say, when's the right moment to put it in? You know, so I like take one step back from the intensity of the interlocking energies, and I say, is this the right moment? And I just ask one question. Sometimes it's instantaneous. The thought and the action come right a split second after. It's a split second after. There's a time I say, I need 2 or 3 phrases of minimalism in the deep register. And too bad if Walter doesn't get it, but
Are you thinking that in the moment sometimes?
yeah, so I need this, and I'm going to do it 5 times, and that'll give Walter some sort of stability to connect with me, to match me, to synchronize with me, or to actually make a contrast.
Right, and I think, and I do
And I
this,
give you that thing, that 5 times, you're going to do something with it.
and I do the same. And I still think one can be out here, even though you can sort of consciously be in the moment and say, oh, I want to give something to
Choose,
Etienne, so
yeah.
so to push him off we're prompting each other.
That's it.
We're prompting. But in relation to what I was saying, I think you can still be out here and do that.
Yeah.
This being back here is sort of being too conscious of what one is doing.
Exactly. You know.
Being too critical of what one is doing.
Exactly. There's no critique. Sometimes I play a crack. You know, I go through this note and it doesn't come. Wrong is right.
Yeah, let
But
it
what
go.
I do, I play it again.
Right, play it again.
I use my voice, you know.
Yeah.
And then there's times when I want nice pure sound. When we go into the band story, which is, I want to ask you a personal question. What happens in the aura, the energy, when I transfer my bass horn? I move to the band story flute, which has all these connotations from Indian music, and it's non-tempered. I do a lot of quarter tones. So how do you react to that? I noticed you jumped right into the piano on the strings,
Yeah.
and that's another world for the keyboard of today.
Yeah, it's an instrument that your flutes sort of open up well, I'm listening to them and what you're doing, quarter tones and things.
The voice, sometimes
The
saturation.
voice and this sliding between. I have this notion to be a little bit more, how would I say it? Using different kinds of slipping clusters on the piano.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I slip the clusters in a different kind of way to try to find some sort of melting of the sound. That's one of the things it does to me more than, say, that the Basset horn might do.
Mm-hmm.
I find myself doing that a little bit more, maybe going inside the piano,
Mm-hmm.
maybe leaving a little bit more space because of the delicacy of the sound.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know.
There's a stylistic thing too, that you wouldn't be pushing it like a quote-unquote free jazz type of
I don't give
comping.
it. Yeah, I sometimes don't give it. I did a little bit in one of the
Yeah.
pieces, but
Yeah.
just to push that direction some. But otherwise, most of the time, it's less of laying down a rhythmic structure that's more coming from a jazz background.
Exactly. And it's interesting, we're talking about it later, neither you or I, although we've played a lot of jazz, studied a lot of jazz, we have not made our careers as quote-unquote jazz stars or jazz buffs or jazz composers, even though your background comes from Anthony Braxton. But he would say, no, I'm not traditional jazz.
Oh, no, not at all. I mean,
no. He loves jazz, he looks at jazz, I study jazz, I teach jazz, you know.
Yeah.
But as a player, I prefer being free.
Yeah, since Anthony would say to me, I'm a composer, I'm a musician.
Yeah,
so period,
Period, exactly.
So wherever
And someone asked me today, what's your style? I wrote a piece for a saxophone and string quartet, and da-da-da-da-da. What do you do when you try to relate saxophone with string quartet, which is, classical saxophone, which is nothing close to jazz, but again, you have that power of the saxophone, the brassy woodwind sound, mixed with the subtlety of the string quartet and the intricacy of the counterpoint that genre implies. And what kind of style would you describe your piece as? Well, I said as maximalist, because I've studied Hindu music, I've studied Baroque music, jazz, contemporary music, electronics, these multiphonics on the saxophone. So I think our way of playing together as a duo, which you'll hear in a few seconds, is maximalist.
It's maximalist.
We draw up from many, many sources.
Right, maximalist, exactly. Maximalist not meaning to fill the space in a complex way, but to have, conceptually, to use all the resources.
Resources of
and
history.
not to be locked in style.
No.
Which is, I love to listen to, but myself I'm not interested in doing so much.
Yeah.
So I am a maximalist, for sure. I would say
Okay.
that's a good way to put it.
Very good. So that's why I said we should look at these Erolgraphs, which cut into the maximalism. And I think one of the benefits of the Erolgraphs, even though a lot of improvisers don't want to look at any music at all, these graphs kind of answer that last point which you just made, to avoid getting trapped into a cyclical way of, in a very stylistically homogeneous way of improvising.
Right.
So I like these quick left turns or quick right turns and strategy adjustments and downshifting and upshifting, you know. And I think that's what thanks to you, looking at these Erolgraphs and a few students of mine, I realized this is what we need, you know, be in the moment and not just saying, okay, I'm planning to do a 12-bar blues and taking 2 choruses or 3 choruses. And you've already outlined your stuff. You can see it's very free of hazard. It's safe improvisation. I was about to say safe sex, but it's almost about the same thing, yeah.
It's mapped out in a way.
It's mapped out, not too many risks.
You have to fill it in.
Exactly.
It's, you know,
Right.
Paint by numbers. And I don't mean that in a putting down those structures in those forms or styles, not at all. I find them, you know, wonderful to do and wonderful to listen to, but it's not my goal to be that type of improviser.
That being said, let's improvise on the Erolgraphs number 2.
Give it a go.
I think this is your page here. Let me see. This is the Erolgraphs number 2. So we have some pointillism after glissando. Using sharp fourths and major 7th intervals, we're going to morph to another sequence with kind of a machine gun homage to Ligeti there. Minimalism in the upper register, long tones in the low register, and some hits with ring over that we're going to synchronize with our voices. So it's quite a complex storyline here. Second part, we'll go with the glissando, upwards ascending pointillism, leading to 3 beats of trills, extended techniques, a free section with long tones in the high register, and minimalism, change, subtract. Do less and less, more or less, ending with trills, tremolos, and a hit. After which we circulate. We have a free visit in the museum, or look at this as a map of many different sound worlds. Like map visiting a city, we'll start here, 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 and visit the whole city in a very free, pedestrian way. There you are.
nice one.
I'm reading better. It's intense.
But then we went back to it. It was open. I was jumping.
Yeah, me
You
too.
right?
Yeah, jumping like crazy. So, just some sort of proof in the pudding. If we can improvise and we can read, and it's more of a stimulus. Like it's a third party in a way. It's a trio. Me, you,
Yeah,
plus the Erolgraph.
I mean, we're playing a duo, and we're
As an imaginary sound painter, also.
yeah, it's an imaginary sound painter. We're coming at it. It's open form, improvisation, duo composition, however you want to look at it. And then all of a sudden, okay, here's the map.
Mm.
You know,
Like a roadmap, yeah.
like if you're out in the woods and just walking anywhere you want to go, well, you're going to run into all kinds of things and problems you have to solve.
Mm.
But if the path is there for you to follow,
yeah.
there's still the problems along the path, but the path is there
Mm-hmm.
nonetheless. So there's one less variable.
Exactly. Yeah. So, we'll do another one. Erolgraph number 1.
Sure.
job. Fun job. About 5 minutes again.
Maybe about 5 minutes. That one got more loose with the.